Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, and we're also going to stick to my home county of Skåne here in the very south of the country. We're going to go back to a brewery who have featured on the channel a couple of times before, but it's been nearly 18 months since my last review from these guys, and I have heard that this beer is a pretty nice one, so very curious to see how it turns out, and it'll be nice to return to these guys after such a long time. So for this review then, we are going to go to the northeast corner of Skåne, to Kristianstad, and we're having a look at another beer from Klackabackens Bryggeri. So this one is called IPA on Demand, and it is the Azacca, Ekuanot and Nelson Sauvin version. So this one is a New England IPA coming in at 6.5% ABV, and I believe this beer was released as part of the local Småska League assortment for September of 2020. So yeah, this one should be a really interesting beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it. This is my first IPA that I've had from Klackabackens, come to think of it. The other two beers that I reviewed from these guys, the first one was the American Wheat, and then I reviewed one that was called What the Duck, which I think might have been a collaboration, but that was like an Imperial Porter, if I'm remembering rightly. So yeah, first IPA from Klackabackens Bryggeri, and hopefully this one turns out to be a nice one and an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So let's see how we get on then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Klackabackens Bryggeri before, and you will see more added to that list at some point in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Klackabackens Bryggeri, on to my brewery notes. So Klackabackens Bryggeri was founded by three childhood friends. This is Kristoffer Ljunggren, Marcus Lundmark and Olof Olsson, and the trio apparently went on holiday to America back in 2011 for a road trip, and they decided to start brewing for themselves after having tried so many of the different beers over there. So Kristoffer had previously worked for Aquavit in New York, and also for the brew pub Apollo over in Copenhagen, which is somewhere I still need to visit. But when they returned to Sweden, they set up a small brewery in a converted 18th century farmhouse in Skeppesliv near Kristianstad, in the northeast corner of Skåne, and they began their test brews there in 2012, and they managed to perfect quite a lot of these in February 2013, and they also set up a brew pub on this site in 2014 as well. But since foundation, brewer Marcus Anahelt has also become a partner in the company, and they've built a new brewery in Eukanot, which has given them a capacity of around 135,000 litres per year since the beginning. In 2019 though, they issued a shareholder programme, much kind of similarly to what Brygghuset Finn in Landskrona did, and they've raised about 4.5 million Swedish kroners, and they've used this to further increase the capacity of the brewery. I think they are brewing in the region of about 500,000 litres of beer per year now, about 500,000 litres. But as of October 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 90 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number is ever increasing actually. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Klackabackens Bryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, another brewery who have really grown in recent times thanks to crowdfunding, and that is becoming a really quite common model in Sweden for craft breweries. And it's interesting that, or it's quite cool I have to say, that breweries can find such strong support these days in Sweden. So yeah, I have to say that is pretty damn cool actually. So thumbs up to Klackabackens Bryggeri for being on point with that. The name Klackabackens Bryggeri, incidentally, Klackabacken apparently is an area of Kristianstad. So yeah, that's where the name of this brewery comes from. But yeah, as I say, that's all I can really tell you about these guys. So let's move on to the tasting side of the video then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this before we open it up. As you can see, we've got the kind of animal heads on this one. You can see that's obviously the 4 founders that's representing, or the 4 partners I guess we should say, the original 3 founders, Christopher, Marcus and Olaf, and then Marcus, who joined them a bit later as the brewer. But yeah, as you can see, nicely presented beer. This one, the artwork on this is quite similar to what we've had from other beers from these guys in the past. But yeah, it says here, this one, we want to give you a great hop offering. This variant is brewed with American hops and some lactose to create a full and modern beer. It fits well. It either drinks well on its own, or with cheese, apparently they're saying here, different cheeses. So yeah, this one should be quite nice. But a little 330ml can, this one, I think I paid about 35 or maybe even 40 Swedish kroners for this, I'm not quite sure, probably 35 come to think of it. But this one I didn't get in the order. I'm sure I actually picked this up off the shelf in the Systembolaget Saluhallen in Lund. This one was on the shelf there, but I probably would have ordered this if it hadn't been. But yeah, 330ml can, this one. IPA coming in at 6.5%, Azacca, Ekuanot and Nelson Sauvin. So yeah, Azacca, we know, lovely kind of orangey hop with a little bit of pineapple to it. Ekuanot is quite limey, and then Nelson Sauvin is that New Zealand kind of grapey, white green grapey sort of thing. So yeah, without further ado, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. Some nice high alpha acid hops in this. So let's see how we go with this. You can smell the Ekuanot and the Nelson Sauvin off this straight away. This I think is going to be quite nice. That does look pretty damn good, I have to say. So let's set that down there. So as you can see from this one, and as you would expect from a sort of New England hazy type IPA these days, so this one has lactose in it. Maybe you could argue this is a milkshake IPA, but that kind of sub-style I notice has disappeared recently, to be honest with you. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, it's poured a lovely kind of bright yellow colour. And I would say that this one is not the haziest of IPAs that you're going to come across these days. It actually has more of a kind of West Coasty type haze to it, in fairness. But yeah, as you can see, lovely kind of bright yellow colour. There was a solid half finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head on this one. That's just faded away to be a very thin foamy layer. If I put my fingers behind the glass there, you can see there is a good bit of a haziness to the beer, but as I say, not the most soupy and gloopy of hazy IPAs that you're going to come across. It's a bit more of a West Coast level of haze that's on this one. But yeah, nice looking beer, this one. And I have to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this has in store for us. So it certainly looks the part, nothing overly surprising about this beer when you consider what style it is. So let's take a closer look at that aroma and just see how we get on with this one. Ooh, now that does smell quite nice. So straight away with this one, you can smell a lovely kind of white bready base to the beer. Nice kind of smooth white bready base, but you've got a, you have a bit of a bread crusty quality in there as well. There are a few grainy elements to the bread in this one. But yeah, the lactose I think is not overly obvious in this. The lactose kind of takes a back seat. But yeah, lovely smooth white bready kind of quality to it. It does have a bit of crispness, a little bit of grainy bread crusty notes like I was saying. You've got some nice, you do have a little touch of wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose. You can smell some of the oaty notes, and then you can feel, you can smell a little bit of the lactose, almost a very slight yogurty type thing from the lactose. And this, and the lactose is going to smooth out the malt base quite nicely. You're going to get a very, very smooth malt base out of this one, I think, in the flavour. But yeah, when you take the aroma in, as I say, it gets, this beer, the more you smell that malt base, it gets a little bit sweeter. But yeah, there's a little touch of a biscuity quality to this one as well, some McVitie's digestive kind of biscuits in there. But yeah, it's a very layered aroma on the malty side of things. So white bread, a little bit more of a bread crusty thing at the back. You've got a bit more of a bitey wheatiness in the very back of the nose as well. Some oaty notes a bit further forward. And then you can see, you can kind of detect the lactose just smoothing those out. And then you've got a wee bit of a kind of biscuity Then you've got a little bit of a biscuity sweetness as well, which is quite nice. So yeah, really interesting malt base, this one, I have to say. I like how I do like how it goes together, to be honest with you. But on the hoppy side of things, let's have a look at that then. It is kind of what you'd expect if you know these hops. It's really nicely balanced. You've got a little bit of everything there, to be honest with you. So you can get, you've got a nice, for me it does lean towards the orangey and limey side of things actually. So you've got a nice bit of an oily orange there, which will be from the Azacca. And you've also got a little bit of it, you do get a little bit of pineapple in there, so there is a wee bit of a tropical edge to this one, but you get, pardon me, a nice kind of oily limey character from the Ekuanot, I would say. And I would say, yeah, it's the oily orange and the kind of oily limey notes that that kind of stick out for me on this one. Yeah, oranges and oranges and limes, I think, are the main components coming out of this beer. But yeah, the fruits strike me as very, very oily rather than anything else. But yeah, on the very kind of tip of the nose as well, you do get a little bit of the Nelson Sauvignon. I think the Nelson Sauvignon, the white green grapes, they come out of the beer a little bit later on, once your nose adjusts to it a bit more. But yeah, oily oranges, or maybe tangerines, it's maybe a bit brighter than that, maybe it's a kind of tangerine orange from the Azacca. You've got a little bit of a pineapple-y quality in there, and you've also got some, you've also got a nice little bit of a limey note as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, really interesting combination of fruits in this one, I have to say. This aroma, it strikes me as a big, oily and kind of smooth IPA, and I'm curious to see whether that's how it's going to turn out in the flavour profile. So yeah, on the green side of things, what would we say? Yeah, there is a wee bit of an earthy character to this one, but not too much. I would say that the green side of the hops on this beer really, it's got a good balance between being floral, and these hops that you have in there are all high alpha acid, so you are going to get quite a bit of floral character out of them, but you've also got a little bit of a kind of grassiness in there as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, it's really quite nice actually, just how everything goes together in this beer. This is one of these beers where it's all about how the aroma just kind of slots together. So take a bit of time and enjoy that before you get stuck into it, but we're going to have a taste of this one now and see how we get on. So this is the IPA on demand from Klackabackens Bryggeri, just near Kristianstad in the northeast of Skåne, the northeast corner of Skåne here in the south of Sweden. Let's get stuck into this one. My first IPA ever from these guys. Slange Skål. Ah, that's nice actually. I like that. Thumbs up to Klackabackens for this. This is a good solid IPA. It's nice. I mean, I find this one to be quite it's quite wet in its mouthfeel, and that it makes it you know, it really makes it quite refreshing actually. This isn't what I was expecting from it. It actually comes across quite differently in its flavour to what I was expecting from the aroma, to be honest with you. But it is a nice IPA, we'll say that straight away. This is nice. Yeah, you need a few sips of this one just to fully get a hold of what's going on. But yeah, let's see how we go with this beer then. So straight away with this one, you can feel that nice sort of white bready quality just blanket the middle of your palate there, straight across the middle of the tongue. As you go further into the aftertaste, you will get a few grainy elements out of the beer, particularly towards the back of the palate. And if you go towards the back third of your tongue, you can feel the breadiness in the beer just thickens up a little bit, but then you do get some really you do get a good little bit of graininess on that back third of the palate there as well, and I'm guessing that'll be the yeasty qualities that are contributing to that. So yeah, you do get a little bit of the wheatiness has a little bit of a kind of pungency up in the back third of the palate as well. So as you move further forward into that middle third of your tongue, you can feel the mouthfeel the mouthfeel just thickens out a little bit. The mouthfeel just thickens out a little, just kind of thins out a little bit, sorry, and then as you move towards the front half of that middle third of your tongue, it's got a little bit of a kind of oaty creaminess coming out of it, which is quite nice. So yeah, the oaty creaminess again, it actually is quite subtle. It's the smoothness you notice from the oats in this one and that front half of the middle third of your tongue. But as you go, if you go behind that, you do get more of a, there is a little bit of a kind of biscuity, McVitie's digestive type sweetness there, and the sweetness I think builds a little bit the further that you go into the aftertaste. But yeah, for me the middle third of your palate is quite crisp, and then you get a good bit of a grainy bread crusty character, and on top of that, on the front half you get the oats and the smoothness, and then behind it you get the more kind of biscuity sweet notes actually. The lactose in this one, because it does say on the can, it says lactose, I don't really notice the lactose in this one, I have to say, because normally with a lactose beer it might only just be a very small amount actually. The lactose isn't immediately obvious in the flavour, but you will notice when you go further into the aftertaste you do get a little bit of an almost, it's almost a little bit like that kind of sweetness you get from yoghurt, you know, petit filou kind of things. You will notice a little bit of that just kind of sitting there on the middle of your palate, and it's interesting how the sort of lactosey character comes out in this one. Normally lactose will smooth out all of your malt base actually, and dextrose and dextrin are quite popular additions to these IPAs to do that as well. But for me, yeah, there's a wee bit of that almost yogurty flavour just sits right in the middle of your palate when you go further into the aftertaste. So the malt base in this one is an interesting proposition, as I say. Nice kind of white, crisp sort of white bready notes underneath, then yeah, a bit more wheaty and bitey at the back, a few grains, a bit of a bread crusty note sitting kind of on top of the crisp white bread layer as well, but then a wee bit of oat and a wee bit of biscuit kind of sitting behind that too. So yeah, it's a really interesting it is a really interesting composition, this beer, I have to say. But yeah, I certainly like how this thing goes together. So big thumbs up to Nelson Sauvin, to Klackabackens Bryggeri for this one. I think the malt base is a really interesting one. I like beers that test my palate a little bit, and this one certainly does that. And it's not your typical New England hazy thing that you get these days. This one has a little bit more of an almost West Coasty mouthfeel to it, which is interesting. But it does lean a little bit more to that, towards the New England side of thing in terms of the way that the flavours come out and the types of flavours you have. But yeah, I do like what this one has going on actually. So I need to see if they bring out a few more versions of this IP on demand. I'm guessing when they've named the hops for this one, I'm guessing that they probably will change it up a little bit and do a few different versions of this with different hops or something like that, and that would be quite interesting to keep an eye on actually. I need to keep an eye on what Klackabacken are doing over the next little while. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate you've got a good little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward along the side of the palate you've got a little bit of a kind of you do have a little bit of a kind of herbal quality coming out of the beer, and then as you reach the front corners of the palate it's distinctly more kind of floral and aromatic, almost a little touch spicy. All of the hops in this, as I say, are high alpha acid. Nelson Sauvin everyone associates with that kind of light white green grapey kind of quality, but it can have a hell of a spicy character to it if you use it as an early addition hop. As I've told you before, the kind of green side of your beer, if you like, and the bitterness is really dependent on the early addition hops, and Nelson Sauvin's got a hell of a spice if you use it as an early addition hop, and I would guess that the Ekuanot and Azacca would display kind of similar characteristics if you likewise used them as an early addition hop. But I would guess that maybe there's a little bit of Columbus or Tomahawk or Zeus or something like that being used as the as the primary bittering hop in this one. It's all about where in the boil you add the hops as well. First hour is mainly bitterness, but then after the first hour, the last half hour I guess it's more technically accurate to say, that's when you get the kind of flavour and aroma profile out of the hops rather than the bitterness. So yeah, the green side of this one is quite interesting, but round the front curve of the palate you've got a little bit of a lighter grassy note, and then behind it on the front third of your tongue you've got that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters push their way out of the beer. So yeah, on the fruity side of things then, this one's, it's actually really nice. I really like how the fruity side of this beer goes together. If you go towards the back of the palate there, the back of that front third of your tongue, you do get a kind of soft, there is a soft sort of mango-y type quality for this one, and I think that'll be the Azacca. There's maybe a teeny tiny touch of passion fruit there on the border with the middle third of your tongue, because you always get the slightly darker, more pungent fruits there, but as you move further forward it is quite smooth and mango-like. And then as you get further forward in this beer, that's when all the complexity comes out of this one. The complexity of the fruits in this beer is really on that very kind of front half of the front third of your tongue, the front sixth of your tongue, if you want to be pernickety about it. So yeah, you can feel the limey notes kind of forming the backbone of that thing. It's almost just like a layer of different fruits. So you've got the limey notes from the Ekuanot kind of sitting there, and then you've got the more orangey notes from the Azacca in there too, and they sort of mix in with each other a little bit, and then it's almost just sitting on top of that a little bit further forward, almost on the very tip of the tongue. That's when you get those lovely kind of white green grapey notes from the Nelson Sauvin. And it's just interesting, you've got a very kind of high, slightly oily, fruity concentration on the, just almost on the right, on the tip of your tongue, but around the very front edge of the palate you do get a little bit of, a lighter, you do get a wee bit of a lighter lime as well, and the beer's almost got a little bit of zestiness on the very kind of front tip of your palate too, which I quite like. So yeah, the flavour composition in this beer is really quite interesting, I have to say. So yeah, quite an oily fruity character to this one, but I think it does work out pretty damn nicely actually. This beer, I like this one. The thing I like about it is its mouthfeel comes across really nicely. We'll come to that in a second. And then the fruity characters are nice. A bit of orange, a bit of lime, and a bit of that Nelson Sauvin white, green, grapey sort of thing. It works very well for me, this one. And yeah, I have to say this is a nice introduction to Klackabackens IPAs. So I will be keeping an eye on what these guys are doing, as I said earlier. So yeah, we'll need to see how these guys progress over the next little while. But yeah, definitely nice to return to these guys after about 18 months or so, and I'm fairly impressed with this beer, I have to say. It makes me want to keep an eye on what they're doing, and that's that's what you want. There's so many good breweries in Sweden these days, and it's nice to see that the quality is quite uniform actually across a lot of them. It's always cool to go to the smaller breweries and try these things, because you can get some really high quality beers from lots of different breweries across the country, and Klackabackens are no exception to that rule. These guys seem to be doing some nice stuff as well. I enjoyed the American Wheat and the What the Duck that I had from these guys before. So yeah, if you go to Kristianstad, I think that beer, if I remember right, the name was a reference to all the ducks that live in the park there. There's a big park there that's just full of ducks, I remember. But yeah, so let's talk about the mouthfeel quickly on this one then. So I would describe this beer as being, it's kind of bottom end of mid-bodied for me. This is quite a light but still drinkable beer. The carbonation is very smooth, and the mouthfeel is a bit wet but also a little bit slick, if that makes sense. So I do like how that goes together in this one. So yeah, quite a slick mouthfeel in my mind. The carbonation, like I said, is very smooth. Yeah, I would say with that. Yeah, smooth carbonation. In terms of hoppy bitterness, I would say about 30. Maybe this one could be 40 IBUs actually. There is a little bit of a slightly stronger bitterness to this one, but I think about 40 IBUs. But the malt base for me, it's quite light, and it's quite smooth. There is a slight degree of sweetness to it, but I would describe this one as more of a smooth and slightly grainy malt base. It does get a bit more grainy the further you go into the aftertaste, but just a little bit of sweetness there developing on top, and a little bit of that lactosey kind of sweetness coming out of it as well. So yeah, I do like how that goes together. The hoppy side of things, about 40-ish IBUs, and then the fruit for me It's quite an oily, fruity character to this one, but not the most oily that I've come across, to be honest with you. But I think overall I would describe this as being quite a slick, and you know, juicy. Yeah, I'd describe this as being quite a slick and juicy, fruity IPA in my mind. So yeah, take a little bit of time and just enjoy this beer for yourself. I think it leans a little bit towards the citrusy side of things as well. I would definitely say that about it. It's got a nice kind of citrusy edge to it, this beer, but it gets a thumbs up from me, and I've certainly enjoyed reviewing this one for you, so I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this one. Definitely nice to return to Klackabackens Bryggeri from Kristianstad here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the IPA on demand Ekuanot. What order have they put it in? Azacca, Ekuanot, Nelson Sauvin from Klackabackens Bryggeri in Untappd, close to Kristianstad in the northeast corner here of Skåne. Definitely going to be keeping an eye on what else these guys are releasing over the next little while. But yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Klackabackens Bryggeri as well. There will be more released from these guys fairly soon, I'm sure. But yeah, let me know your own thoughts on this one. Thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys later. The IPA on demand, a 6.5% IPA, very, very slick and nice to drink, from Klackabackens Bryggeri in Kristianstad here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Slange, skål, cheers, and thanks for watching.